Welcome back. Let's check crypto prices this morning as President Trump signed an executive order yesterday creating a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. That ahead of today's first ever White House crypto summit. Crypto czar David Sachs writing on X this: the reserve will be capitalized with Bitcoin owned by the federal government that was fortified as part of criminal or civil asset forfeiture proceedings. That means it will not cost taxpayers a dime, writes David Sachs. At least 15 industry leaders will be at today's summit. Fox News confirming some of the topics will include banking restrictions and the possibility of eliminating capital gains tax on U.S.-backed crypto. Joining me now is the CEO of Mara, Fred Thiel. Fred, great to have you. Thanks so much for being here. You're going to be at the White House today. Tell us what you're expecting and what you want clarification on when it comes to digital assets.
Well, we're very excited to be able to speak with President Trump and his team. I think today the important issues are going to be listening to their proposals and giving feedback on things like CAMT, which is the corporate alternative minimum tax, which essentially taxes unrealized gains on digital assets. Many other assets have exemptions, but this is one that needs to be changed. The other is the taxation of Bitcoin as property versus as a commodity. Oil and gold producers don't pay essentially for their revenue until they sell the commodity they mine or that they pump out of the ground, whereas Bitcoin miners today have to recognize revenue when they mine Bitcoin and then pay taxes again when they sell it. Other areas that we believe are very important are obviously the framework for digital assets, market structure, the debanking of the crypto industry. I spoke in front of a House Financial Services Subcommittee meeting, hearing a few weeks ago on this topic. And then lastly, one of the key things is really how the strategic Bitcoin reserve is going to move forward in a revenue neutral or a budget neutral way. As per the executive order, both Secretary of Treasury and Secretary of Commerce have been directed to find ways to fund it that are revenue neutral. And Senator Lummis has obviously got a bill to this effect on the House of the Senate.
Yeah, we spoke with Cynthia Lummis this week. The summit is also focusing on Trump's executive order to establish a U.S. strategic crypto reserve and how Congress could regulate oversight of those digital assets. That's exactly what I spoke with the Wyoming senator about. Lummis was on the program looking specifically at who's overseeing what. Watch this.
Bitcoin is a commodity, so it will be regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Some other cryptocurrencies look more like a security and should fall under the disclosure requirements at the SEC. So part of what we want to do is guide what is a commodity and what is a security and provide that kind of clarity in the law so we can let agencies know who has jurisdiction over what.
This is super important, Fred, your reaction to that and where you really see the growth story within digital assets.
Well, I think the digital assets market has, I'll use a sailing analogy. We've been sailing into the wind for the past number of years. We're now on a broad reach and looking to be able to sail downwind with the wind behind us. President Trump and his administration have done a lot to deliver on the promises that they made during the campaign. And we see this industry growing rapidly. We want to see the U.S. be the dominant Bitcoin mining country in the world. We believe that Bitcoin mining as a load balancer for electrical grids is going to have a huge contributory factor to enabling us to utilize the 70-plus gigawatts of energy that the grid has today, that if you add dispatchable loads, could be made usable, which is critical to the AI future in this country. And we think that the assets, as they continue to accumulate in the U.S., will form a bigger and bigger part of our economy. The U.S., after all, represents about 50% of the equities markets in the world, and we believe it should represent an equal amount of the digital assets markets as well.
Very interesting. So, Fred, tell us about Mara.
So we are a technology company that focuses on transforming energy into digital assets. We are fully vertically integrated. We own energy generating assets, and we have a very deep technology vertical where we do everything from co-found companies that design ASICs, the only U.S. ASIC manufacturer for Bitcoin mining, a company called Auradine that we co-founded, all the way up through the software stack of orchestration. And we operate an independent pool where every single Bitcoin that's mined in our pool is stamped Made in USA.
Very, very good. And we know that all of this is totally moved by policy. So when you look at the policies coming out of this administration with regard to energy, how does that affect digital assets?
Well, digital assets in the AI industry are tied a little bit to the hip because we both depend on access to energy. The difference for Bitcoin miners is that we are a dispatchable load, which is a technical term for meaning we can shut off at any time and then turn back on without it necessarily affecting our operations, which is a huge benefit to the electrical grid because it allows the generators to balance the power on the grid. The other thing is we can move energy demand to where the supply is. We can put our data centers in the middle of a solar farm, a wind farm, out on oil fields in Texas where we mine using flare gas and mitigate methane. We can put that demand on the grid away from transmission lines and transmission congestion and move it to where the energy is generated, which again, huge benefit to the energy grid in the U.S. So we provide ways for the grid to have more energy left over to provide to the AI industry.
I love it. The Securities and Exchange Commission, meanwhile, dismissed several investigations into crypto firms, including Robinhood, Coinbase, Kraken. The SEC says its crypto task force will host a series of roundtables to discuss the regulation of digital assets. And we spoke with acting SEC Chairman Mark Ueda yesterday about the SEC's agenda in the Trump era. Watch this.
Day one of the Trump administration, I issued an order creating the SEC's crypto task force. It's something that we should have done years ago. We set the rules. We tell people what the rules are. We expect them to abide by those rules. And then if they don't, we enforce. It's not the opposite way around. We don't hide what the rules are, hide our views, and only announce it ex post facto. There are so many in the crypto industry who've been asking for this clarity for years, and instead they get hit with subpoenas, they get hit with investigations, they get hit with court actions. So we're going back, we're engaging with the public.
Fred, what's your reaction? I feel like the SEC has been governing by investigation in the last 4 years, right? You know, a Wells notice here, a Wells notice there, that'll get your attention.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we had a wealth of correspondence with the SEC during former Chair Gensler's term.
That's
and
right.
I think that what the SEC is doing now is absolutely correct. It's lay out clear rules and guidelines so people know what they can do, and then engage with them and ensure that they follow those rules and guidelines. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, once again, clarity, predictability. Fred, it's good to see you this morning. We'll be watching your work.